Thank you for taking a few moments of your time to view our presentation of this fine home. This house is a circa 1847 Greek revival. It was purchased in 2001 as a second home by the current owner, and after much love, patience, and effort, the home has been correctly and completely restored and decorated to the period in which it was built. Also included is a stunning contemporary mural throughout the entire second-floor hallway, painted in the historic style of Rufus Porter, depicting some of the surrounding homes of the same period that are still standing. This incredible home offers 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and approximately 2,267 square feet. The property is just under 5 acres and includes a usable horse barn. Now let's begin our tour.
The paint color is a wonderful French yellow. One of the charming things about approaching the house, and the first thing one notices, is that not only with the historic architecture, but the lack of modern landscaping around the foundation. This home has been lovingly maintained for these years, and it's never been a moment of, well, what do I want to invest in the landscape, but how do I preserve the clarity and the vision of the original structure? Even with the driveway, you'll notice there's not a big concrete drive, there's not blacktop, there's not a paver driveway. It's one that would have had a wagon on it. And so these characteristics were carefully thought out and carefully maintained throughout the entire property.
The columns were rescued from another home in Detroit by the owner who did his restoration in the 1970s. They're correct for this home, and they are all old wood columns. The windows here on the main structure are all original, and I'm told that the grills in these windows was probably cypress, and that is lending to the fact that they're still in great condition. When we did our restoration, of course, we had to reglaze all of them, but they are original.
The windows also show the typical 6 pane over 6 pane, which was a very popular style in the early 1800s and was carried through in a very classical manner here.
In the Greek Revival architecture, everything was very symmetrical, very structured, and you can see here that it would have really, and it did originally have 4 windows. When they installed the fireplace in the 1920s, they had to omit the window, and it's gas-fired now, but it could certainly go back to being a wood fireplace again.
The interior fireplace, of course, has the same fieldstone that is featured on the outside exterior.
The barn in its present condition has 5 or 6 working stalls, a saddle room, and an upper loft.
The furnishings in the living room and dining room were all taken from the period of the Greek Revival and beforehand, because many families had heirlooms even in their day that they passed down. Many of the items here that are shown date not only to the house, but the prior 40 or 50 years. They've all been done in more modern upholsteries that reproduce the original types of designs that would have been typical of the period. The living room is the picture molding that Ron and Karen made sure were installed in all the rooms. It gave the opportunity to hang pictures from thin ribbons and wires from the molding without piercing the plasterwork. The style of that is very much a farm style piece that would have been seen in these homes.
By the 1840s, most homes were heated by stoves. I believe that was the case here, as evidenced by the wainscoting behind the sofa. It's got so many nicks and bumps. It looks clearly like a place where wood was stored for a stove.
The dining room here shows again the wainscoting that goes around the space, and if you notice how low it is, typically they were done at 32 inches. This is probably at about 20 inches, which gives a sense, even on a ceiling height that's not abundant, a feeling of space and of really great scale.
It was opened up into the large dining room it is now in the 1970s, and we did not want to change that. It really makes the space so usable. We wanted to maintain that same flooring on the first floor that is original on the second. We decided to have white pine installed, mimicking those wide floorboards. And the pine came from Mercer, Maine. And to find someone who could install it correctly and countersink the square nails, that was the way it was done in that period. Most importantly, that chandelier is candlelit. We like the ambiance of the candlelight, especially for dinner parties and entertaining.
The great thing about that dining room, too, is that it features 4 large windows, 2 facing the western view of the property and 2 for the front.
When we bought this home, the kitchen was done in a typical 1970s fashion. We knew it had to have more of a historic influence, but had to be very functional.
And even though it has all the modern appliances, they were married up with the antique fixtures, which seemed to have created a nice bond between each other.
Back in the day, the keeping room was a place always off of the kitchen. It was the most used room in a house because it was warm from the kitchen stove and usually bright, usually good windows. There is electricity to the chandelier. I chose to have candlelight instead. This is a lovely room in the winter too, and now we have a little gas heater in that room, and it's just cozy and lovely. A great place to read as well. This room, I think, was an addition in the 1920s, and the floor is a concrete slab. I don't know if that's the way it was in the 20s, or that slab, I suspect, was added when the foundation was redone in the 1970s. We opened the ceiling up during our renovation. In opening that room, in opening the ceiling, the construction and the windows at the time were from the 1920s. I'm real confident of that. We did replace them with a little bit larger window, and the floor here is flagstone. In the laundry room here, there is a sink that we found in Ohio that dates back to the 1920s, and it's quite a nice little spot to bathe a little baby or for setting flowers in a vase. It's really quite nice. It's a very handy little sink. This stairway was added in the 1970s renovation of the home. This is a great addition, and this space now is so accommodating for a large group of friends. It's just very welcoming to come into this space now. I commissioned this through Margie St. Ange, who is a Royal Oak artist. It's done in the style of Rufus Porter, who was an itinerant painter back in this period of the 1840s. He painted down through the Hudson River area, upstate New York. He did many homes then in this style. He used stencils in his painting to recreate the scenes in a reasonable fashion. It was very expensive then to put wallpaper up, so many people had murals done, and to do it reasonably, they had to use stencils. But it gives a really nice effect here. We've replicated what we think was how the little town of Austin Corners may have looked.
This window shows one of the western views out of the boys' room. Every view from this home is like a painting.
In this room, an interesting aspect here, next to the blanket chest, on the floor there's a little metal patch, and that covers the hole in the floor from the original heating system that was used to heat the house in the 1840s. Many of the plank white pine floorboards are quite wide, some of them in excess of 20 inches. They were probably milled right there on the spot when the house was built. There were a lot of white pine forests at that time. The furniture in the boys' bedroom was correct to the period.
The girls' bedroom in the front of the house has the very low windows which sit underneath the prominent cornice and portico of the front exterior. As is seen in the boys' bedroom, both the boys' and the girls' bedroom face the front of the house and share the same type of windows. The side windows, however, because of the architecture, are taller.
What's interesting in this room, if you lift up the rug on the floor, you can easily see the original unfinished floorboards and the original color of the floor, which was green. The small stove in the girls' bedroom is correct to the period. It's not really connected to the wall. It's more of a design element. You can see the dressing room in the girls' bedroom from this view. It's really quite a nice space. It's quite a lot of room in there for storage. One of the closet doors hides the second floor furnace, which we installed, so we have zone heating on both the first and second floor. But interestingly, the wall in where that furnace is still has the original plaster. And the plaster is not painted. You can see it on the raw. It's really quite beautiful.
The bathroom features the Newport red woodwork that's prevalent throughout the entire house, and we were able to find a French reproduction to the period of around the 1830s that was made by Brunswick and Fee in France. Here in the master bath, the wall coverings were done from a historic collection of papers, and even the fixtures, the lighting fixtures throughout the house were kept very close to the period or what modern lighting would have been. This is not a home with recessed lighting.
This is the master bedroom. There are 2 closets here. One is a walk-in. We added the bay window during our restoration. The bay window adds so much light to this room.
The historic paper here has an allegorical type of pattern that again was taken from the period. It has a very lighthearted and a little bit formal feeling to it. This is actually one of the prettiest rooms in the house, with the bay window, with the window hangings and the beautiful floors. The room just is an oasis.
Thanks again for taking a few minutes of your time to watch our presentation. We hope you have enjoyed the tour. If you or anyone you know may be interested in purchasing this magnificent home, please contact me at your earliest convenience.